The spiritual exercises is a way of praying that was developed by St. Ignatius of Loyola. And it involves contemplating the scriptures, putting yourself in the scene, using your imagination. And if it's done deliberately and intentionally and with passion, it's intense. It's an intense way of praying. But I would argue there's all the ways we pray as Catholics. If we do it with intentionality, with passion and devotion, they can be intense. Whether it's a rosary, Lectio Divina, with chaplet, especially adorations or stations of the cross, I have seen when these devotions are done well and with intention and passion, especially adoration, when we take the kids to one of these conferences, they'll often walk out and say, wow, that was intense. That was intense. But there's an intensity about our relationship with Christ in the Eucharist. And if we do all those other devotions with intentionality, and the more intense they are, the more intense this is. Because this devotion, our sacrament of the Eucharist, is what I would argue is an intensely intimate. It is intensely intimate. And an image of that intense intimacy is marriage. And that's the gospel we have today, where Jesus reveals his first sign at a wedding, where we have the exchange of nuptial vows and Eucharist. Now you might say, well, what does the Eucharist have to do with marriage? I would argue everything. It is everything. It's a comprehensive relationship. And we know that in marriage there are times of great intensity, whether it's euphoric or hard times. We've had quite a few marriages around here, and sometimes I'll ask young couples, well, how's married life? They never say, oh, it's been really relaxing. No, nobody says that. Nobody says that. And I've also had the privilege of being on some of these marriage retreats. The marriage has a bunch of programs for marriage enrichment. First, Engage Encounter for engaged couples, Marriage Encounter, and for couples in crisis, Retrovi. And I've been to these. And I'll tell you right now, they're very intense. Especially the Retrovi, which is the movement, the ministry for troubled couples in crisis. One of the exercises I've seen at some of these events, and I would recommend that you try it at home, those of you who are married. Now, sometimes put the couple together, and let me paint the picture here for you. Have the husband and wife sit in chairs facing each other, and they have to touch knees, and they have to hold hands, and they have to keep eye contact with each other. So the whole time they have to make sure they're touching their knees, holding hands, and keeping eye contact. Now this particular exercise is called Stop, Start, Continue. Stop, start, continue. So here's how it goes. Holding hands, touching knees, eyes locked and loaded. Usually the bride gets to go first. She gets to list all the things she wants him to stop. And he can't say a word. He can't respond. He can't argue. He can't give his commentary. He just has to listen. But then he gets his turn to tell her all the things she wants him to stop. Again, keeping eye contact, touching, knees, no discussion, just listening. Then they list what they want them to start doing. And when they're finished with that round, they tell each other what they want them to continue doing, what they're thankful for. And again, keeping eye contact, knees touching, holding hands. No discussion, no conversation, no debate. When that exercise is finished, oftentimes they're out of breath. Oftentimes their heart is pounding. Sometimes somebody's been crying. I say, well, what did you think of that? And they'll use that term. Wow, that was intense. It's not what I expected. I need some time to evaluate that. Because wedding vows are intense, and marriages should be that way. Now, Christ is here at the wedding feast of Cana. And I think it is no accident that he does his first miracle there. But he reveals himself as the true bridegroom. Because, in the time at the wedding when they run out of wine, it's the role of the bridegroom to fix it. And he can't. And so Jesus has to step in. But before we even get to that, the question is, what happened here? This is full of theological language. We could talk all day about the 6 jars and 6 old covenants that Jesus replaces with his own blood. But here's what I think happened, Father John. I think somebody walked up to Mary and said, Mary, we're glad you're here. We're glad you brought your son. We're glad he brought his friends, but they drank all the wine. And can you please do something about that? And the very conversation she has with Jesus is very telling. She's being a mother. She senses that someone is embarrassed, that there's a crisis going on. Sometimes men don't notice these things. And says, they run out of wine. And his response is mysterious. What does this have to do with you or me? Whatever you think of that response, I think what she says next is the greatest advice any Christian ever gave another Christian. Any saint ever gave us. Do whatever he tells you. Just do what he tells you. And he performs the miracle, his Eucharistic miracle, at a wedding. And I think it's also good for us to look at what the church says about marriage. That it has 2 ends or 2 goods that come from it. The second one is procreation, education of children. Adds to the church. Children are a good. Marriage is ordered towards offspring, ordered towards children. But also marriage is good for the couple. It's good for them. It makes you more holy, it makes you more generous, makes you more patient. It's supposed to make you a saint. But also, even after they take the vows, when they kiss each other and walk down the aisle and out there, they're sent on mission, 2 at a time, to go image Christ's love for his church. But weddings have lots of what you would say consenting circles. There's the engagement, the party, the meals, the dance, everything. And all those are important. But the most important part, the most intense moment of any wedding is the exchange of vows. Not the rings, not the lasso or adas. Those things are important. But when we do kind of like that exercise, we tell them, turn towards each other, take each other's hands, eyes locked and loaded, and repeat after me. I take you to be my wife. Those are the most intense moments. That's when the sacrament happens. And you can tell by the people sitting in the front row. They know something amazing is happening. And so do the couple. You could see it in their eyes. Now, sometimes people in the front rows, especially the parents, start crying. It's emotional. They're losing their son or daughter. Sometimes they're crying out of joy. Take him, take him, take him. You never know what the situation is. Either way, it is intense. And we have to continue to promote to the world the distinctiveness of marriage, how it is like no other. It is a comprehensive relationship. There's no relationship like marriage, a covenant of body, mind, and spirit. To tell somebody else, I love you the most. I promise to love you the most. And just like the prophet, for Zion's sake, I will not be silent. For Jerusalem's sake, I will not be quiet. It's about time we started using our mouths. To start remembering it is the bridegroom who gave us all of this. And that this intense intimacy of marriage, it reflects the intense intimacy of the Eucharist. Now, having said that, I want to invite you to an exercise. We did this a few years ago during the COVID, mess. When we read this gospel, we asked for a deliverable from the congregation. So what does that mean? I would invite all of you that are married to go pull out your wedding photos. Pull them out. And not just look at them and share them with your family. Go ahead and take a picture. And those of you who know how to do computer stuff, download it, whatever that means, and send us a copy. Next week, we'd like to have a rolling scroll of pictures of your wedding day. And if you happen to have a picture of your actual exchange of vows, send that as a reminder, as a celebration. It feeds us to remind us that you took an intense, intimate vow. So, because next week, I'm asked to speak about vocations, and I'm going to bring a picture of the moment that Bishop Amon put his hands on my head, imparting the sacrament of holy orders. That was an intense moment for me and my family. I got it on film. But also, a year or two ago, I found the DVD of my ordination. And with my sport group, we went ahead and stuck it in the player and watched it. And we had a grand old time. Look at all these priests and how young they were and how skinny they were. Look, there was the whole first set of priests have all passed, and they were in there. But aside from the laying on the hands, which was, I remember every second of that, to listen to Bishop Amon's sermon was something that I didn't notice. To tell you the truth, when I was ordained, I don't remember any of the sermon. I was too nervous because I knew it was about to happen. But when I listened to it again, 18 years later, it was profound. It was moving. And we all were moved. Wow, did you hear that? We had to hear it again to celebrate it again. So I'd ask you to do that, and hopefully it has an intense effect on you. Because we're called to be passionate about our faith, because we all know there's nothing worse. Well, let me change that. There's only one thing worse than a boring Christian. That's a boring priest. All of you have sat through vanilla sermons. I know I have. And I may have given some, and I apologize for that. But we're sick of vanilla Christianity. I know I am. Because to be ordained, to be married, to be a Christian, I would say to be married, to be a priest, and to be a Catholic should and ought to be intense.